Let's talk about a new law in France that they want to bring in. It's called reinforcing Republican. The president says it's about preventing religious extremism.
Ce à quoi nous devons nous attaquer, c'est le séparatisme islamiste.
The bill doesn't actually single out any one religion, but some French Muslims say it's targeting them and that it's being used to score political points.
A good Muslim is an invisible Muslim in this country.
So what's in this proposed law? Is it as bad as some people say? And what does it have to do with France's whole thing about secularism? When it comes to religions, France is a pretty diverse place. Just over half its population identifies as Christian. It has the largest Muslim and Jewish communities in Europe, and a third of people in France don't affiliate with any faith at all. And all of those communities have been able to coexist in part because of a legal principle called laïcité, which roughly translates as secularism. It was passed into law in 1905 to separate the French Republic from the Catholic Church after years of power struggles. These days, you can see laïcité in action in the way the French president, for example, isn't sworn in using a holy book.
Laïcité is a great concept in itself. The state remains neutral. The people working for the state, so the civil servant, remains neutral. The people, however, are not neutral. And actually, it's a way to protect religious freedom, freedom to believe, to not believe.
But over the years, French governments have interpreted laïcité in new ways. They brought in all kinds of measures to keep religion out of public life. To the point, though, that some people accuse the state of going after religion. Like a law in 2004 that banned religious symbols in public schools.
Large Christian crosses, the Muslim headscarf, Sikh turbans, Jewish skull caps, the kippah, all were banned in the name of laïcité, secularism.
So from a tool, a legal tool that was aimed to protect religious freedom, it became a tool to target religious visibility.
It goes back to a centuries-old pattern of how the French government has tried to control religion.
So what does laïcité or secularism have to do with this new bill? Well, the proposed law doesn't explicitly mention laïcité, but it talks about Republican principles like free thinking and free speech, which President Emmanuel Macron says are under threat because of terrorism. Since 2015, more than 200 people in France have been killed, mostly by attackers recruited or inspired by ISIL or Al-Qaeda. Like the attack on staff at the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo. It had published caricatures of the Prophet Muhammad, whose depiction is widely forbidden in Islam. 90 people killed at the Bataclan Theater, a truck driven through crowds, a Christmas market shooting. And then there was everything that happened in 2020. Charlie Hebdo republished the Prophet's caricature, and 2 people were stabbed outside the magazine's old building. That's when Macron announced he was drafting this bill.
L'islam est une religion qui vit une crise aujourd'hui, partout dans le monde.
But that didn't go down well with leaders in Muslim-majority countries.
Macron'un Müslümanların yoğunlukta olduğu bir şehirde yaptığı İslam krizde açıklaması saygısızlıktan öte açık bir provokasyondur.
Protests spread, and some people boycotted French products.
It is absolutely unacceptable to hurt the sentiments of millions of Muslims across the world in the name of freedom of speech.
Not long afterwards, a teacher in France showed students the caricature during a lesson about free speech. There was a social media campaign against him. He was tracked down and beheaded. And then, a week later, several people were killed inside a church. So Macron went ahead and proposed his bill. He gave the problem a name, Islamist separatism, and explained it this way.
La volonté de ces idéologues est précisément de retourner une partie de nos citoyens en raison de leur religion contre la République.
Okay, so what's in this proposed law? Things like tougher penalties for people who threaten or attack public workers in the name of religion, more powers to go after hate speech online, and limits on big foreign donations to religious institutions. But there's other stuff in there, like giving officials more power to stop forced marriages, polygamy, and anyone issuing virginity certificates for women about to marry.
Yes, forced marriage is a horrible thing, but guess what? We already have laws for that. Polygamy is already prohibited under French law. It's the same with, fighting terrorism. We have a very strong legal apparatus that apparently was not enough efficient to prevent other terrorist attacks.
There are even restrictions on religious private schools and homeschooling.
It's easy to find some examples of somebody who, ends up with ISIS, who was homeschooled by her parents or his parents. You can find examples of anything. How much of a real problem this is, I think much more is being made of this than most people in the educational field would support.
That's the thing about this bill. It seems to be about a lot of things. Laïcité, terrorism, mosques, schools, women, even what the politicians describe as separatism. Some take that to mean everything from radicalized young people to communities not assimilating, even as far as how halal and kosher food are stocked separately.
Alors moi, ça m'a toujours choqué d'entrer dans un hypermarché et de voir qu'il y avait en arrivant un rayon de telle cuisine communautaire et de telle autre à côté.
It goes back to this theme that Muslims refuse to really integrate. If they were to integrate, they would publicly proclaim themselves to be different.
And it's not just this bill. There's a lot more going on. The government has closed down several mosques and Muslim associations for having radical links, which they've denied. They've also got Muslim religious leaders to agree on a charter of principles that rejects political Islam and foreign interference.
This is something French presidents like to do. They build monuments, they build museums, they build councils to govern Islam. It's almost a routine.
They started by organizing the Catholic Church, then it was Judaism, and now it's Muslims.
So how do Muslims in France feel about all of this? Well, religious leaders are split. One Muslim association said separatism is a reality that must be faced. At the same time, a lot of people feel this bill just reinforces a feeling that French Muslims are never French enough.
Je suis née en France, je suis française, ma grand-mère est française, ma grand-mère s'appelle Annick, mon arrière-grand-mère s'appelle Antoinette, enfin, on peut pas faire plus français que ça, mais parfois j'ai l'impression de plus être française en fait et d'être juste musulmane. Voilà. Et ça c'est pas facile à vivre, hein.
But if you listen to French commentators, there's another theory about why Macron's pushing this bill. It's that ahead of elections in 2022, he's making a political calculation to win support on the far right and on the left.
France is complicated because it's actually a portion of the left which tends to be most kind of strict about secularism. This could grab some secularist parts on the left. It could grab some far right. It's hard to square these things, though, because you can only go so far in appeasing everybody.
France's parliament and senate still have to vote on the bill before it becomes law. They'll have to weigh up a lot of things, but chief among them is whether this proposed law goes against the very principles people say it's trying to defend. We love hearing about what you'd like us to explain next. We're actually working on some of your ideas now. So if you come across any news stories you find complicated, let us know in the comments wherever you're watching this video. And I'll see you next week.